are we getting you out to Austin?
Hopefully not in too long so I can travel.
All right, let's go, man.
Alrighty.
Hello and welcome to Talk Heathen! Hey, it is July 12th, 2020, Season 4, Episode 28. I'm Eric Murphy, and with me today is Prophet of Zod. Zod,
hello,
how's
everybody.
it going?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. I just had my birthday this last week, and it was fun, and friends sent a video, and I cried. It was really, really nice. But before we kind of get any further, Zod, for people who don't know you, who are you?
I am Prophet of Zod. I am an atheist YouTuber. I essentially just make recorded content about my understanding of fundamentalist evangelicalism, which I grew up in. And I do various things, including counter-apologetics, little cartoons about the Bible, a lot of introspection about coming out of faith and things like that. So it's mostly support for people who are starting to doubt or maybe trying to find their footing as non-believers.
I've got to tell you, man, after watching enough of your videos, your insight into things has been incredible. And I'm so glad that the movement has you in it. So I'm super proud to have you here, man.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So before we dive into calls, I've got a couple quick announcements. Just the regular stuff. This show, Talk Heathen, is a product of the atheist community of Austin. It is a 501c3 nonprofit. We've got a whole bunch of other shows. If you want to support us, please consider going to patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. That's patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. It helps. Zod, you could probably attest to all of the work that the crew was doing just before the stream started, right?
Yes, this seems like a very busy operation. So yeah, I can tell what you're talking about for sure.
So everyone is volunteering their time, but the tech that they're using is being supported by the fans. So if you want to and you can, patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. We also have merchandise. We're going to be popping that merchandise up. There it is. Talk Heathen merch. It was going to be getting completely nixed for a new logo, and then COVID happened. So we've got a little bit more time with the OG logo before we switch over. So if you haven't picked up your Talk Heathen mug or shirt, please consider going over there and picking that up. Let's see. Is there anything else? Yes. International callers can now call in, and we're really excited about that. So if you want to call, we have this tiny CC link that's below me in the lower third. If you go there, you can call the show without having to incur all of these international fees. So give us a shout. We'd love to talk to you. If there's nothing else, I think it's time to dive into the first call. What do you think?
Sounds good.
All right. Malcolm in California, you're live with Eric and Zod. What would you like to talk about today?
I'd like to talk about my interpretation of the Bible and how it may actually be the most credible interpretation given the other various religions and what the stories in the Bible may originate from,
okay,
or be associated with.
Okay. Why do you think the Bible is credible at all?
I don't think that at face value that it's credible in that sense. I believe it's a memory trick, a Kabbalistic compilation of stories that tell a real story if you kind of interpret it.
So do you mean that it's kind of on par with the stories of the Greek gods or in the Iliad, like those kinds of stories?
You could say that in some respects, yes.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then I don't think this is a very interesting thing to dive into. If it's just as credible as other fiction, then I'm really not super interested in your interpretation of fiction. Is there something here that you think we should know, or that maps to reality in a way that we can track?
Yes, it could. That's the point. Is that it is a realistic approach to the stories in the Bible and how they're compiled together, and how there's a like a secret gospel, or there's esoteric wisdom from the past, so that some say.
Well, I don't know who some is, but I know who you are. I'm talking to you, Malcolm. So
Right.
is this esoteric wisdom on the same par as like Aesop's fables?
Could you say that again?
Sure, Aesop's fables.
Aesop's fables. I couldn't say or speak on that because I'm not well versed on Aesop's fables, you know. But
Sure.
I could give you my point of view on this real quick, and then you could take it with a grain of salt.
Well, so just so long as you understand that we're going to be listening for truth claims, and we're going to be looking for things that we can investigate. And if this is going to lead down a path of I see use in fiction, cool. I agree with you. We can find use in fiction. If we agree that it's fiction, then I think that we're probably going to move on to the next caller. If you think the call is not going to go in that direction, then I'm happy to say go ahead.
I could give something further to investigate.
Okay, go for it.
It may not sound like it at first, but as I go on, then perhaps.
Okay, what do you got?
Okay, so when it comes to the Bible and the story, and it's compiled with like other stories and whatnot, but how it goes along is God creates the earth and the heavens. There's a Garden of Eden. There's a flood and a Tower of Babel. Then the flood, I believe. And this could be relating to real stories in the past. So instead of creating the earth and the heavens, it's actually building upon the earth and the heavens as humans do, so to speak. Light can be a variety of things.
Okay.
The Garden of Eden could be just an example of the surface of the earth, or the story
so
of
that, I mean
Akhenaten,
that's fine. Malcolm, I've had plenty of callers call in and want to use different definitions for words.
I could
We
give
can
you
talk
something
about those
to investigate,
definitions,
though.
but here's the thing. If you're just talking about naturalistic things happening and trying to make the Bible fit, if you just change what the words mean, that's literally what you can do with everything. You can do that with literally every book. If you just change the definitions of all the words, it can mean what you want it to mean.
I'm comparing it to history. I'm talking about.
You're comparing it to history. Was there a global flood?
There was floods, like to high extents to where civilizations in the past would have considered it that, or the story would have.
Okay, I'm not asking what people considered it to be.
Like
I'm asking you, was there a global flood historically?
That could be debated later, but I don't want you to.
It can be debated later. I'm asking you now.
I'm not telling you to investigate a global flood.
Okay, sure. Your other example was the Tower of Babel. Was there a time that people built a tall building and then all of a sudden everyone there was speaking different languages? Why? Because they were cursed, because they had the hubris to be like the gods.
I opened up saying that this was a interpretation, so I said at face value that's not exactly what I'm not saying to take it at face value here. What I'm saying is that there is times in history where it takes stories from. So in Egypt, you could see, you could investigate that there was a time where there was a globalization of other cultures And I believe the dates are either 1177 or 1086. This goes back to Egypt, and this is where something like the Tower of Babel could have happened, because there are people that had languages that were lost.
So let's say I grant you that all of the benign claims in the Bible, let's say all of them are true. We're still stuck with the miracle claims. I really don't mind that we're talking about historical things, right? There are cities that existed or exist that are written in the Bible. We're not, well, I'm not going to sit and argue with you that nothing in the Bible is true, because those places are obviously there, at least many of them. It's the miracle claims that I care about. Are you saying that there's something there, or are you just saying that there's?
I'm not saying that there's miracle claims. If there was any miracle claims,
and Malcolm, I think we agree. I think we're on the same page. I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care, buddy.
Yeah, what I was struggling with there is really, I mean, not to be sarcastic, but really even what the point was there. Like, it was just expressing that in broad general terms, you can take some historical context from a book like the Bible if you read into it. Yeah. And aside from discussing that broadly, which I don't see where that really takes us in a phone call, I didn't really know how to engage with that. So,
I mean, I've definitely had people call in who say, you know, well, Christians can do good things. And there are these points that people make because they want that kind of acknowledgement that, hey, you know what, there is something here, you know. And I think that if we can just acknowledge some of the really basic stuff, you know, it doesn't matter what you believe, you can do good things. Atheists, at least not ones that I know and spend time with, would say that Christians are unable to do good things. And in the same way, when we're talking about historical places or simple things, you know, there was the story of multiplying bread and fishes. We're not going to argue that bread and fishes exist. We're going to argue with you the miracle claim. So that's okay. All right, let's move on to Ryuk in California. A lot of California callers today. Ryuk, you're live with Eric and Zod. What would you like to talk about today?
Yes, how you guys doing today?
Good. Doing pretty good. Waiting for the caffeine to kick in, to be honest. What do you want to talk about?
Yes. I first want to know, why are you afraid to debate me? My name is Nindo.
How sad. Can you believe that trolls would change their name and change their numbers continuously to call in? And
nothing's more compelling than being called out for being afraid to debate someone. That's like pretty new and fresh.
Yeah, it's anyway. Adi in Indonesia, you're live with Eric and Zod. What would you like to talk about today?
Hello guys. Hi, happy birthday, Eric.
Hey, thank you.
And hello, Zod.
Hey.
Okay. I will talk about my story with drug addiction and how Jesus cured my drug addiction. So my name is Adi. I'm from Indonesia. I was born and raised Catholic. Years ago. So before, I'm sorry that English is my third language. So
okay, you sound great so far, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so years ago, I was hooked on a very addictive drugs called crystal meth. And I went to, crystal meth is very addictive, actually. And I went to rehab once, and I relapsed in less than a week. And then after something happened to me, I was busted by the police, and I went to prison for 6 months. Keep in mind that unlike in the United States, in prison in Indonesia, you can do drugs freely. Unlike in the United States, so drugs are everywhere. So I'm not gonna lie, I still, in my first couple of weeks in prison, I still do crystal meth. However, I joined the Christian Protestant community in the prison, and a voluntary priest that comes once or twice a week to lead the prayer told me that Jesus can heal me. Every time, he said that every time I had temptation, urge to do drugs, just pray hard and keep Jesus in mind, that you don't want to disappoint Jesus. Because I tried that. I tried it for every day I pray, and also there's a temptation from the in the prison because in the environment there was like many people do drugs there. I
Okay.
did not. I resist the urge. I managed to resist the urge, and after I get out from prison, I get my life back on track, and I got life back on track. I got a job. I get my own business,
Okay.
and I believe that without Jesus, it's not possible.
So you called in to give us your testimony.
Yeah, that's my testimony.
Zod, do you want to take this or?
Sure. Yeah. I would say first off, I'm very happy for you for what you've accomplished, and I think it's a great thing that you managed to kick that habit. Aside from that, it's really, I've heard these kinds of stories a lot. I've had family members say that they gave up drinking because of Jesus or various things like that. And I don't really want to call into question your personal experience too much, because I think that can be a personal thing when it was such a big deal to you. But aside from hearing that that's your story and that you attribute it to God or Jesus or religion or whatever, I don't see much reason to accept God as the reason for it, I guess. I guess I would wonder why you attribute this to God, why you think that he caused you to quit versus, it was something in your own efforts that led you to do that, and maybe Christianity, it just as a religion, inspired you to.
I think yes, because I went to rehab once, and I see that I relapsed in less than a week. But when I joined the Christian community, I focus. Every time I have the urge to do drugs, I focus to pray, and it helps me a lot. And I tried to quit drugs before, but it doesn't work. But after I pray, it works.
Sure. So
I guess.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I guess the issue with that for me is that, and this isn't to invalidate your story or anything like that, but for me as somebody listening from the outside and trying to take meaning from it, I struggle with the fact that it is purely anecdotal. One thing you tried didn't work, and then another thing apparently did work. There are all kinds of factors behind what you did when you feel Jesus was bringing you out of drugs, or that God was saving you from it, or that it was miraculous. And there are all kinds of exercises, including prayer, that could have value as a purely physical exercise that might or might not be related to God. So we really haven't made that connection in your story. The problem with anecdotes is that they can kind of cut both ways. So rehab might not have fixed it, and God did. I've personally, and this is within my own family, had stories of people who felt that God had saved them from drinking and then relapsed from that. And so I think that it's purely a personal story on your part, and the fact that turning to Christianity worked from you, that's great, and I congratulate you for that. But to me, from the outside, it doesn't really demonstrate anything about the supernatural efficacy of the practice, or the idea that God actually was what saved you from that. So that's where I have trouble gaining traction with your story, or getting much, at least supernatural meaning from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Hadi, I'm sure that you probably had an idea of what we were going to say about this, right? You're giving us your testimony, and the idea that your belief is what cured you of your addiction. I'm sure you know that plenty of people have called in to say that before. So what were you expecting our response to be? What did you want to get out of this call?
I'm just saying that for me, it's not possible that any other way. It's because of Jesus that.
Wait, hold on. So wait. I'm not going to invalidate the experience that you got off of drugs, and that you think that it was Jesus. That's perfectly fine. For you to say it was impossible any other way, do you think anybody has ever gotten off of drugs by themselves?
Yeah.
Okay, so what makes you so special that you are uniquely unqualified to be able to do it? Why are you unable to do it, but everyone else is?
Because I guess I was badly at the time. I was badly hooked and addicted by crystal meth. Crystal meth is a hard drugs, by the way. It's not.
I know a lot about crystal
it's
meth, my friend.
Okay.
It's something that has plagued that has plagued my family in the past. I know plenty about crystal meth. You don't need to explain more about that. I'm asking you,
Okay.
if why are you so unique that you are uniquely unable to do this by yourself? And have you considered that accessing community and getting follow-up and regularly getting that kind of help and using things like introspection help people get over addiction? Could it be that the things that you were doing had less to do with God and more to do with the fact that you put yourself in a situation where you were geared to succeed better? You had support. Support is incredibly important. You had, a personal resolve that even in your times of weakness, you went, you know what, I'm going to sit and think about this. And even if you take the God out, that's an incredible story. I think the sad thing is that you think that you didn't do it.
But the community, I was hooked. I was get into the community because of Jesus, because of they were all Christians, and in the name of God, they helped me.
So, hold on. I don't understand that. Say that again.
So because the first reason I got into the Christian community because of God. Because if I don't believe in God, there's no community for me. Right?
Yeah, sure.
So
if there's no God belief, there's no community. But that's not the same thing as without God. I'm struggling to see what part God actually played in this. I see certain exercises you did, and I see a community of people. But when you say because of Jesus or because of God, what did that actual contribution on the part of God look like? And how was it differentiated from you doing meditative exercises or participating in a community? That's what I'm struggling to see here.
Because on my personal experience, just that it's hard to say.
It is.
It's hard to say because when I was, my withdrawal, my body is like shaking so much, and I found that praying helps. That's my testimony.
Well, I mean, sure.
And one thing I mean, when we ask you these probing questions, one thing I want to emphasize is the biggest thing here is that you did break that habit. And I think that's the most important thing. And I don't mean to belabor your explanation so hard that we lose sight of that or that we minimize what you've accomplished. I think that is a great thing. One thing that I'm a little leery of, as far as your personal perspective on this, is seeing it in terms of disappointing Jesus. That's one thing that I think the really good thing that I take from your story is that you broke a really bad habit that was destructive for you and was a tragic part of your life, and now your life has improved. What I would hope that you could take away from this is that your life is now better because of what has happened, and that's the important thing. For me, I know it's going to be different for you if you believe in God and Jesus plays an important part in your life, but the focus on disappointing a person that you can't see, can't hear, we don't have a good reason to think exists, puts a lot of the emphasis in the wrong place. And that's where I could see a certain danger in this moving forward for you, is misunderstanding what was actually healthy and what had happened and what was actually important in what had happened. But beyond that, whatever reason you attribute to this, I'm very happy with where you've come, and I would want to emphasize that. So, I mean, the biggest thing is congratulations on what you did, regardless of what you attribute it to. I would just be a little careful to recognize what's actually important and what you want to maintain moving forward in your life.
I perfectly said, Zod. I got nothing else to say. Hadi, thank you for calling in, though, and please take the time and look at this call, because we are supportive of and are glad that you got over this and that you got through that addiction. Absolutely. You should give yourself more credit, man. That's all. And I think that one place to look, if you want to study it, is look in and see what the effects of community is on getting over drugs. Because there are lots of communities, not just religious ones, but I mean, you have hobby groups, people being there for each other, lifelong friends. When you surround yourself with people, it helps a lot. And that could be something that you might not have attributed that to. And it's still wonderful. It's just not necessarily Jesus.
I never look at it that way. But anyway, thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Take care, my man.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, that was nice. I liked that. Okay, let's move on and talk to Patty in Greensboro, North Carolina. Patty, you're live with Eric and Zod. What would you like to talk about today?
Hey, guys. I don't know if you remember, I called in a couple weeks ago.
You got to help refresh my memory. And I know Zod is guesting, so could you get us back to refresh our memories, please?
I got you. I was the Muslim guy. I called in. We had a conversation about the tri-omni-God and the logical inconsistencies in that.
Okay, cool.
Well,
and
anyway, you had me.
go ahead.
You had me go ahead and Oh, it's Hadi. I don't know what you had me listed as. It's my friends watching the show. Yeah.
It looks like there was a misspelling here. H-A, how do you spell that?
H-A-D-I.
Got it. Sorry about that. Okay, so go ahead.
No problem. Yeah, so you had me go ahead and look into the tri-omni-God logical contradictions. So I did a little bit of research. There's two kind of perspectives from the Islamic faith that I want to bring to you.
Okay.
The first, which is, I would say, the more popular conception, is the maximally powerful God, i.e. a God that cannot do something that would violate his own essence, but otherwise can do whatever he wants. And the other one would be the kind of more Sufi conception that I enjoy a little bit more. And that is that problems like this, logical contradictions, exist because we are in a logical universe. God transcends the logical universe. So when viewing the problems from outside of logic, there is some solution that we can't conceive of at the moment.
Okay. So doesn't that sound like kicking the ball down the road? Or saying, I'm right, but you're just too dumb or incapable or not equipped to be able to handle it, but I'm right. Because if that's the case, then I could say something similar. I could say something in my holy book and go, hey, Eric is actually, 5 beings that are placed all over the universe and they're all connected. I can say lots of weird things. And if you say, well, no, I don't agree, I could say, well, it's just because your human brain can't comprehend it. Would that be enough for you?
Well, to me, I can't really disprove that. And if you're pretty insistent about it and you're swearing up and down that it's true, then I guess why not? What's going to stop me from believing that?
Well, here's the thing: that there are a lot of places where really bad people could take advantage of you, because that's a weakness there. That's a chink in your armor, and we want to point that out because you could be taken advantage of. Instead of that, instead of saying I will believe it until I can falsify it and prove it false, switch that around and go, the time to believe something is when there's evidence for it.
All right, that's a fair assessment. So you mentioned last call that you had some problems with a maximally powerful God, and I was curious to hear what those are.
Sure, but before I do, I think Zod wanted to chime in.
Oh, I'm just thinking this is, the fundamental challenge here is that we're not talking about a God who knows more than us or knows everything. All that we are demonstrably dealing with are people who make this assertion. And so, Eric could say that, and that maybe you could take him at his word. But the trick is, as people, when we approach each other with a new idea, we need to be able to explain it to them. Otherwise, they don't have a good reason to take us seriously. So the issue is not, can I describe something that maybe has internal consistency to it, and just shore that up by saying you can't understand it. I need to give you something that you can actually work with. I think that's, I guess, already what Eric was saying. But yeah, this is a really common thing, and it's not real. There's no conversation starter there. Anybody can just assert something exists, not explain it, and just say, I don't have to explain it because it's beyond your understanding. And so that doesn't give different groups of people anything to work with or any way to communicate. And honestly, if somebody does take that at its face, something has gone wrong. And like Eric said, you're just going to get taken advantage of because they can tell you literally anything. But we can move on to the maximally thing. That's just.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've been watching anti-MLM videos and pyramid scheme stuff, and watching how a lot of people were taken in by exactly that. You have some very charismatic person who's like, no, this is exactly how you're going to become a millionaire from working at home. And it brought a lot of people in, and it has destroyed a lot of people's lives. And so, again, this isn't trying to be hurtful. This is trying to arm you and give you the best tools available. So definitely,
if you set aside the expectation for somebody to explain themselves, you're just at the mercy of charisma then, basically.
Yep.
You're switching off part of your mind, and whoever is the most forceful or most convincing can say pretty much anything to you, and you are choosing to put yourself at their mercy.
Yeah. So now talking about the omnis, did you want to talk about the omnis or maximals? What was your...
Let's talk about the maximals. I think we were pretty thorough on the omnis last time.
Okay, so give me a maximal, and let's go from there.
Within the physical universe,
I
God
can't think of anything.
Create
Go ahead.
Anything. God can create anything of any size, any scale.
Sure. So let's start there. Matter cannot be created nor destroyed. Or do you mean that your God could take existing things, like make a car like that? Or do you think your God can just poof things into existence?
God can add as much energy as he would like into the system. Okay.
So do you have any examples of that happening? Like, is there a way that we can go, hey, this is a thing that can happen, and then we can determine whether or not that can be applied to the God? That's like saying, have you ever seen something falling up of its own, just falling up here on Earth? Well, no.
Are you talking about like miracles?
I am talking about, yeah, sure, miracles work. If that helps.
Okay, well then,
sure.
Let's just say then that the very fact that the universe exists, we'll call that the miracle, right? The beginning of the universe.
Okay. Haven't you just defined that God into existence now? Who says that God? Who? Okay. Sure, no problem. So when you start a business, I know this is going to get a little weird, but I'm going to try and get there as quickly as possible. When you start a business, you don't start with all the bells and whistles on. What you want to do is you want to get down to the minimum viable product, the absolute least that you can do to be successful. Now let's apply that to the God concept. What is the minimum viable God for the creation of a universe? Right? Well, we don't have the experience of, we don't, the idea of creating universes is not something that makes a lot of sense to me. But even if we grant it, just so we can move on for this, right? What is the minimum viable thing that could create a universe? Well, I don't know, but I think I would say that which can create a universe. So maybe there's just one thing, all it does is create universes, it does that, and then pops out of existence. So now you have the beginning of the universe. Have you gotten any closer to proving you're God? Have you gotten any closer to any of its other characteristics? It kind of sounds like a non-starter.
Yeah, but that's not really the argument that I was making. I was asking you about your problems with a maximally powerful God. Like, I'm not sure I'm seeing what those problems are right now.
Absolutely. So let's take that example of something that it just poofs universes into existence and then dies. I think that would probably be, I think that is one claim. And if I stack that against all of the other claims that are made on the God side, I would say that I have a whole lot less to prove with mine than yours. So how come you discounted mine and still have yours?
Well, I don't know. I mean, from the way that I'm looking at it, it seems like they all have about the same amount to prove. You know, if you can
Really?
prove
So hold on. I'm not
that-
talking about an intelligent agent. I'm not talking about something loving. I'm not talking about something interventionary. I'm not talking about something that is everywhere at once. I'm not talking about one that can continue to do things. And all of those are claims on your side, I'm assuming.
Yeah, they are.
Okay, so how are you saying that it's equal there? You have a lot more to prove than I do. And it seems that you've already ruled out mine, but still have yours. So I'm wondering where your scale is. How did you filter that out?
I see what you're saying. So you're saying that because there exist unprovable beings that are more provable than the more provable unprovables are what we should prefer, and eventually, by following that line of reasoning, prefer only what is provable.
Not prefer only what is provable. We live in a universe that we don't understand.
Of course.
But what we do is we assign levels of confidence.
Right.
And we go, okay, hey, here's the evidence that I have of X, so I'm going to have this degree of confidence in it, and then move forward like that. And yes, I would absolutely want to take a medication that has been proven to work than one that people just hope works.
Right.
And I think that should be the way you would. I would hope that would be how you would take that to the God question too.
Well, then what I would say to that is that what is and what isn't provable is dependent on the systems that we use to prove it. Like,
Sure.
for instance, if we were living, 1,500 years ago in the mountains, the systems of proof that we might have had for proving the existence of, say, Yetis would have probably very much told us that there were Yetis out there.
Sure, absolutely.
And, and whatever systems that we have today are just as incomplete. Maybe they're better, but they're still incomplete. So just saying that this thing can't be proven.
I absolutely agree.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, Hadi, I absolutely agree. But I think that you're conflating two different things. You're conflating rational and true. So when you're using the best evidence available and you're making an informed decision, you could say that you're making a rational decision. There's another definition there. Is there sufficient evidence to support that conclusion? Well, you depending on the tools you have available, sure. You could say that person rationally came to that conclusion and that conclusion was still wrong. Totally understandable, but that doesn't come into the realm of truth. So let's say instead of going into the past, we go into the future and we can invent a godometer and use that godometer to detect any gods. When that time comes, sure, if that time comes, then this conversation will be a whole lot easier. But until then, I think the answer to whether a God exists would probably be the same answer that I would hope for people on Yetis. And that would be, I don't know.
Well, I think that you make a really good point. And the only thing that I could say to that is that I think maybe you're putting too much of a distance between what's rational and what's true, simply because, what is true is, everything. We don't have access to the truth. We probably never will have access to the truth. All we ever have is our rationality. We may get closer, but at the end of the day, there'll always be something missing,
So you're just referring to things that we aren't aware of yet or don't have evidence for yet?
Okay, if we take, let's define truth in very worldly terms, right? This is the definition of truth that I'm using. Truth is the sum total of everything that has ever happened and will ever happen in the physical universe. Let's call that truth for now.
Okay, can I give you a competing definition of truth? Because the first one seems a little unwieldy. Okay, that which comports to reality. Or that which corresponds to reality.
Yeah.
There's a whole thing about truth. There's the correspondence theory of truth, and that's what I'm coming with right now. That which corresponds to reality.
Well, then the only thing that comes back to my earlier point, right? Like, you can only get so close. You can only correspond so closely with reality. I can say that the grass is green, and you can say that's true, but in reality, there's more to it than that. Grass is not just green. Grass is reflecting light of a certain wavelength. That light reflects because of certain other fundamental properties, and so on and so forth. There's always
It
more.
depends on what you mean for the purpose of conversation, though. For most people's conversation, grass is green is totally adequate to the meaning they need to take from the conversation. There could be highly
we're not really
scientific
having most
discussions that
people's
require
conversation.
something further.
Well, that's just what I'm saying. This is the kind of conversation that requires something further, isn't it? When we're talking about truth, we got to be talking about what is.
Okay, so let's say you want to describe grass in further detail than to say it's green, like go into the wavelengths and stuff like that, right? You're saying that there's more truth there that you can describe about grass beyond that it's green.
Yes.
How do you get that information?
I mean, you study it.
Okay. So you come up with verifiable, observable facts about the nature of what grass is, what the word green even means. You understand it to be an approximation, but you can measure and observe things about grass that basically describe that in more detail, right?
Exactly. You can always refine the approximation.
Okay. And what do you mean by refine approximation?
Well, you have an approximation of grass by saying it's green, and then you refine it by saying it's green because of reflecting light. Then you refine it further by saying that light behaves in certain quantum ways, and you refine it further by saying, and so on and so forth. So you're refining your approximation of what grass is.
So basically, what you're saying is when we observe grass, we describe it in somewhat approximate terms, and we understand that until we actually observe things further, we recognize that our understanding of what grass is approximate until we actually observe further things, right?
Right. And what I'm also saying is that we will only ever we'll have very detailed approximations, but we'll never have what grass is in our head. We will never truly know what is grass. We can only ever get so close.
Hold on.
Okay, but I guess it sounds like Eric has some objection to that, but I guess my issue is there might be, my head specifically is not necessarily consciously going to hold all that data at once, and I have no use for it to be honest.
Right.
But as far as we engage with grass and the idea of grass, we're going to either do so based on data that we can observe and replicate and fully analyze and that we can be confident in, or if we're dealing with approximations, we just remain hesitant about our conclusions. We don't go making up wild assertions about grass and telling each other what grass wants of us and how it wants us to live our lives and things like that. So I think when you're dealing with any concept, what this illustration shows us is that you should either be dealing with observable, verifiable facts that you can be confident in. And when you want to expand the conversation out beyond that, you need to be very tentative about your conclusions and recognize where you're either stepping out a little too far or just plainly guessing.
Yep.
I think that's a great point. Eric, did you want to say something?
So I did have something to say, but wow, I want to underscore that point first because that is way more important. Yes, what Zod said. The other thing that I was going to say is just on another level. That's where I get the sense of wonder, the feeling of wonder, the idea that there's always more that we can learn is amazing, dude. We should enjoy it.
I totally agree.
Anyway, that said, this has been a good talk.
Yeah, they're really enjoyable.
Yeah, if there's I hope to talk to you again in a future week. In the meantime, take care of yourself.
Yeah, you too. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like him. I like him. All right. So let's move on. And we have someone who's called in many times. Why though? Okay, let's just try it. Marlon in the Philippines. You're live with Eric and Zod.
Hey Eric, how are you guys?
Good. So it says here that archaeological evidence for Nephilim escaping to North and South America when Joshua and Caleb entered the Promised Land. also ancient terrible weapons. So here's the thing. How do you study? How do you vet your sources, Marlon?
Well, I base them on the documents that I've found online, such as audiobooks and other sources from my school.
Okay, so do you think that every book that is written is true? And every audiobook that you find is necessarily true?
Wait. This is what I want to say. There's an archaeologist.
No, hold on, Marlon. Here's the thing, man. No, it's okay. You've called in so many times about so much wacky stuff that I'm really concerned with how you get to this information and how you decide what is and isn't true. Because I think if we don't talk about that, we're going to be doomed to repeat this cycle over and over. We need to sharpen your tools and make sure that what you're using is going to get you reliably to truthfully understanding things about the world. And until we get there, dude, it's starting to feel like a waste. So again, if it's in a book, does that necessarily mean that it's true?
Well, not everything.
Okay, so how do we determine what is true and what is not true?
Well, by researching what the facts are. The truth is what the facts are.
Okay, so let's start with Nephilim. What is a Nephilim?
The Nephilim are the offspring of the fallen angels from the time of the Bible that have sex with human women, and they populate the land of Israel.
Sure, that sounds like any other. I mean, dude. Sure, I've come across concepts like that in fiction all the time. I don't think those things are true. So why do you think that that description is one that matches to reality?
Well, there has been, this guy has found a skull in Paracas, Peru, and there were literally hundreds of skulls down there, and these are not completely human, but a Nephilim skull. There were also skeletons that would measure 9, 10, or 11 footers, sometimes with 6 fingers, double rows of teeth, copper ornaments, and these were not indigenously American. Then when you talk to First Nation Native American, they will tell you that, oh no, there was a race of giants that predated us. They were here when...
You know what? I see where this went. I asked you what evidence there is of Nephilim, and you're talking about evidence that you think exists of giants. Cool. So you know that there have been, you know that there have been plenty of hoaxes for that kinds of stuff. How do you determine that something's not a hoax?
These are from newspapers dating 150 years ago when settlers pushed west. They found burial mounds. At first, everybody thought that these were Native Americans. And
burial mounds are not surprising at all. That's a thing that we do.
I'm not sure what 150 years ago has to do with it anyway, because hoaxes were extremely popular back then.
And Prophet of Zod, there were these Paiute tribe Indians. They talk about what was a race of cannibal giants. They were very large, and the Paiute would fight against these giants. And at one time, they herded them into a cave and set the mouth of the cave on fire. This cave is the Lovelock Cave in Nevada, where the Teka tribe, which was a race of giants, were annihilated. Actually, this cave...
I'm sorry, before you go too much farther here, there's a lot to unpack in this, including where you got this information, whether it's credible. And as a listener, I I have to have a constant filtering process going in my mind. People could come with me with anything from ghost stories to UFO stories to these giant stories. And with something like that, I think it's important that you understand what this sounds like in the ears of someone like me, how many other similar stories we've heard, and what I'm supposed to do with this information. So there's a lot to unpack there that I don't think we could really fully resolve in this conversation. What I'm curious about, just as one single point, is where do you draw the connection? And I'm sorry if you've already gone over this before, but where do you make the connection between large skeletons having been found and some local legends existing and Nephilim? I'm not seeing that connection at all.
Well, from the Bible, when Joshua and Caleb were entering the promised land, and God was putting destruction all over the city. All of the tribes were not annihilated. There were these giants up from the mountains, and they were like, "We gotta get out of here."
I'm sorry if I could cut you off. I know where this is going to go, and I'm afraid it's going to get a little laborious. But it sounds like the connection. Just to sum this up really quickly, the connection is that giant bones were supposedly at least found somewhere, and the Bible has tales of giants. A lot of cultures have tales of giants. So I'm wondering why you think these are the specific giants of the Bible story versus of the Odyssey or something like that.
No, a lot of people thought that all of the giants were annihilated when God has spread his wrath over the land of Israel. Just like
okay, hold on a second. A lot of people thought, because when God did a thing, you're talking to two atheists, and I don't know who the hell a lot of people is. Try again. Give us some information.
What I'm trying to say is there are these giants that escape and flee northward. Some of them sailed.
Where's your evidence for that? And I'll tell you right now that it literally took our crew 2 seconds on Google to see that Snopes has already debunked this thoroughly. So how come you didn't find that? Have you even tried looking to see if you're wrong?
Well, I have these documents from Google Drive.
No, I didn't ask you that. Try again, Marlon. Did you even try and looking to see if you were wrong?
Well, I have been watching this show.
This show does not talk about giants and archaeology. Do you try to research the things that you find online to see if you are wrong?
Well, yes.
Okay, and I'll give you an example. We all do it. So I was looking at buying something on Amazon. I read the good reviews and the bad reviews, right? I want to make an informed decision. But it looks like a cursory Google search will show that what you're talking about has been thoroughly debunked. And so are we just here to Google things for you?
Have you watched the show Sidrots? It's supernatural.
Okay, I don't think you're answering the question. Let's try that again. Are we just here to Google things for you?
No, sorry.
Okay, so why aren't you doing it yourself?
Well, I've done my research before.
Okay, then how come it took like 5 seconds for our crew to find this on Snopes? Do you go to Snopes? You should check it out.
I don't know what
Go to Snopes.com, SNOPES.com. It helps.
I mean, okay.
Okay, sounds good. Next time, look to see if you were wrong. Find ways to falsify what you're looking at. And falsification means, hey, if I'm right, then this should play out this way. But if I'm wrong, it should play out this way, right? Find ways to falsify your claim and then see if it's been falsified and see, test it, right? If the claim that you made is one of giants and all of this, then what you find should be a preponderance of evidence, or at least something that the scientific community is looking a lot into. Why? Why is it not? Well, let's take a look. Oh, hey, it looks like these were thoroughly debunked. Okay, no wonder. No wonder people aren't looking into it anymore. Okay. This was not a true.
Whether in the town of Waitura in Peru, which is 9,000
Okay,
feet
I
above
think you're just waiting for your turn to
level.
talk. Zod, anything else?
Yeah, that conversation held very little interest for me, to be fully honest.
Okay,
There's so
Marlon,
many
okay.
people who have done their research or have a thing of Google Drives or can appeal to a local legend, and it all sounds the same to me, and there's not really any dissuading people once they reach that point. I appreciate people who are willing to try to work away at that, but they have no sense of what their claims sound like to other people and how little it gives any of us to work with. And so if you bury yourself in this little world and feel like you're doing recreational research of some kind, yeah, it sounds really cool to you, but it gives us literally nothing to work with. And it sounds so much like so many other things. There's not really a place to start conversation. And so I like to be patient with people, but I just don't know what to do with that.
Well, I mean, we talked about rationality in an earlier call, and I've talked about this on my personal show, that when you ask somebody, is this rational, they'll give you their internal justification. Well, this fits my view of God. This fits my understanding of what's in the Bible. But that's not going to convince us. Another way of looking at whether or not something is rational is there sufficient evidence to justify accepting it as true? Why? Because, hey, why did you put on your lucky socks? Oh, because every time I do that, I win a baseball game. Okay, let's look at that. And when we study it, if you can show me, if there is sufficient evidence, then you could convince me too. If there's not sufficient evidence, though, I'd say that's not rational. You can internally go perfectly in a circle and think a whole lot of weird stuff, but if you want to interact in a world that other people exist in, we have to demand more of that. And that, what he had, may have seemed rational to him internally, but it does not come off as rational externally. He has access to the internet.
And what really destroyed his credibility more than anything else, to me anyway, is the jump from the bones to the Nephilim. Nobody's going to dig up those bones and based on what they see, as far as I can tell, say, holy cow, these must have been the sons of fallen angels who blah, blah, blah from the story of Genesis.
Yeah.
That data is not in that dig. Basically, there's large bones and somebody who already believes the Bible. At best, there are large bones. I kind of maybe doubt that there are, but yeah, they're just trying to connect to something they already believe. So the real meaning behind it is entirely made up in his head and in stories that he's read from the Bible. And even given any kind of data from a dig, even if it did exist, really all the hard lifting is being done in his mind.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you nailed it. All righty. Let's move on and talk to, we have someone with a question for you. Malachi in Ohio. He's asking, Prophet of Zod, do you know anything about the fundamentalist in Kentucky who prophesied COVID?
Yeah, I just wanted, it's more of a kind of a discussion topic. And by the way, Eric, it's great to hear you again on the show. We missed you last week.
Cheers.
But yeah, I was just curious because Zod said he was from a fundamentalist Christian background. And, I had heard about this guy, Dan Coverstone in Kentucky, claiming he had these dreams last December about, burning buildings and protests and stuff, and something about November. And the specifics don't really matter because you guys have talked about prophecy all the time on your show, but I thought it was kind of an interesting discussion topic if you guys are familiar with it. And if not, I'm sure Zod would probably have an interesting prophecy experience or story to talk about from his fundamental background. But it's just an Assembly of God church, and I just find it interesting how these fundamental Christians just continue to find ways to conjure these things up and to create this urgency for belief and this, coming destruction and all of these, they just persist this over and over again. And I just thought it was interesting. I was kind of just waiting for this to come out. Someone claiming to predict COVID, and then you've got the guy Kenneth Copeland that's breathing the spit of God on it and killing the virus and all those crazy things. So that's all. I just wanted to kind of bring it up as a discussion topic. I'm an atheist, been for years, but I just wanted to hear what you guys had to say about it.
Rock on. Thank you, Malachi.
Well, you're in luck in a way, because not only was I fundamentalist, but I actually was Pentecostal. And so I'm very familiar with people having dreams and having a sense of urgency and thinking things are prophecy. Was very much in my experience growing up. In fact, I graduated from an Assemblies of God school. So this sounds very, very much familiar. I don't know the specific story about the prophecy. I would be interested in getting a link to more information about that. But I tend to doubt
I just
that.
kind of Googled it. There's actually multiple. I was surprised because I heard it from some of my family is obviously still Christian, and there's a preacher that was talking about it. I occasionally watch their podcast just for fun, and he started talking about this and kind of made it sound like there was one guy. And so ironically, when I Googled it, it only takes a few seconds, and there's tons of people claiming this, and so it all just kind of falls apart from there. But yeah, I kind of had to deal with that, where people just, even Holy Kool-Aid was talking about it the other day about one of his experiences of how someone speaks a word of God over you and they start making these random generalizations that could apply to a lot of people. Yet you kind of get sucked into that emotionally, and you think that they're talking to you, and a little different than this scenario. But
sure.
Anyways, but yeah.
So I think this is a perfect example of the Texas sharpshooter fallacy. It's counting the hits and ignoring the misses. And I'm glad that you found Holy Kool-Aid, because I was going to actually recommend him. His Psychics Debunked series goes over a lot of that and shows that you have all of these different predictions that are made. And so if you have hundreds of predictions, you find the one that came true and you focus on that one. See, this person is a real prophet, and you forget the others. And it's kind of crummy. And just on a side note, if you go back and watch that video, you'll see that Holy Kool-Aid was sitting right here in this same studio. He's my roommate.
No joke.
Yeah, seriously.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I don't want to take up too much time, but let get some other callers. But yeah, it's great I'll check you out, Prophet of Zod. I love when you guys have guests on, because it's a great way to find new content and new stuff to watch, and when you have new people on. So it's great to see you on.
Much appreciated. Thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Zod is absolutely worth your subscription. Check him out, because I don't know if he's going to hype himself as much as I think he should be hyped. Zod, dude. Yes, this guy. Subscribe. We don't mind.
Thank you.
Go. Yeah, dude, absolutely. So
I guess the big thing I'd be curious about, sorry if I'm belaboring this too much, is based on what that person had said, did people know back then that COVID was going to come, and anything about the nature of COVID? And if they did, why didn't they spread that news to the rest of the world? If so, that's actually useful prophecy. If not, you're just reinterpreting. That's pretty obvious stuff, but prophecy very rarely does anything to compel anybody who doesn't already believe.
Agreed. I'm sorry I stepped over you on that one, my man.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. So before we get into the next call, I'm going to thank those patrons. And before I thank those patrons, if you want to call in, if you're a religious caller, or if you want to see more religious callers being talked to today, call the number or follow the link, because we still have a couple people on the line, but we do prefer more theist callers. So now's your time. 512-991-9242 or the bit.ly link. And yes, there it is. 512-991-9242 or visit tiny.cc/callth. All right. With that out of the way, it's time to thank our top 5 patrons. I have it right here. I'm hitting the refresh button. And our top 5 patrons are Dingaloo, Jay Friedman, Kamal, Ribbow, and Ward Nippling. Thank you. If we sincerely appreciate it, and we are putting those donations to good work. So thank you so much for supporting us. If you want to support us, you can go to patreon.com/talkheathen to me. 2/3 of the way, we thank our top 5 patrons, just like I did now. So consider going there and check it out, because it's pretty good. I like it. This organization's fantastic, and the Talk Heathen wouldn't be here otherwise. So that said, let's go ahead and talk to Eli in Oklahoma City. Eli, you're live with Eric and Zod. What would you like to talk about?
Hey, fellas, how's it going?
Good.
Doing good, man. Well, what do you want to talk about today?
Good. So I've got 2 things for you. I have a quick update on some advice that you guys gave me back in February, you and V, actually.
Okay.
And then I also have a question, so I'll try not to take too much of your time.
Sure.
So, yeah, back in February, we talked about the angry atheist phase, and at that point I was felt like I was coming at the tail end, and you guys just gave me some advice for how to deal with that, and maybe channel that into a more constructive place. I had also asked you about, is it worth it to reach out to your, former church members and people that you knew prior to getting out of the cult?
Yes, I remember this call.
Yeah. I think I also thanked you on keeping your teeth after the witchcraft fiasco. So, congrats again.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so you guys advised me, hey, definitely a good idea, but, do what's best for you. If you feel like it's worth it, go for it. I have had a lot of positive results with that. There's been somewhere I feel like I'm talking to the religion and not the person. So those things have hasn't crashed and burned, but it's kind of petered out, because there's only so far you can go trying to be friends with someone's religion.
Sure.
I have had some, though, that have been very, very positive and been able to reconnect with people and sort of keep the friendship going and just kind of connect as humans and not cultists. So that's great. So really wanted to thank you guys for that. Additionally, I took your advice, and actually, as of I believe a week ago, I finished my interview with Recovering from Religion, and I started my training. So
Okay.
I'm going to be volunteering with them.
Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, so super, super stoked about that. You guys really, really helped me get to a place where I was able to do that. Kind of get through the healing process as much as I could, and then turn around and give back. So really, really thankful for that. You guys are awesome. Cool.
Thank you. And just for people who don't know, if you look in the live chat right now, there are links. Please consider going to Recovering from Religion. They need help, especially when it comes to the Hotline Project. There are people out there who need someone to talk to, and they will train you. It is a peer support line that helps give people resources where they are. And if they don't have access to those resources locally, what resources that they can get online. If you have the time, please check out Recovering from Religion, because what they're doing is fantastic. Okay, Eli, go ahead. Just needed to throw in the pitch.
Oh, yes, of course. I think it's only a few hours a month, too, required, and then you can take more if you want. So, yeah, good thing to be a part of. Yes, okay, question time. So, my thing now is, so you guys really helped me move from kind of the end of that initial impact, and now I'm in, kind of the zone that we talked about. I wanted to know, you guys personally, Eric and Zod, how do you guys deal with just kind of, think of it maybe as vestiges of the times when you were religious, ways that you thought, just kind of like programmed responses and things like that. Quick example, just to make sense. So I was pretty homophobic because I was raised in the Southern Baptist Church and indoctrinated from a very, very young age. Even after, in my head, when I realized, hey, there's nothing wrong with this, I have friends who are gay, and transgender friends and stuff like that, there was still this lingering
knee-jerk reaction, like if I'd see like a gay couple kissing or something like that. And I would get really upset at myself, and I would just feel, I feel really defeated because I feel like even when I'm out, my brain isn't quite there with me yet. Stuff like that, man. It's kind of those mornings when you wake up and you don't expect to be hit with something, some feeling or some memory, or in fact, we were having sort of a. Are you familiar with Sharknado? And I swear this makes sense.
Yes. Yes.
So okay, great. So we basically had a Sharknado party with some friends, but we were watching a cringy Christian movie. And so the idea was we'd come over and we'd sort of just like relax and talk shit and make jokes during the movie and stuff like that, just hanging out. And so just some things were said in the movie and just kind of some stuff that I'd been hearing my whole life, and just the way that people were either dismissed or treated, or there's even like some spousal abuse in the movie that was not presented as spousal abuse. So it kind of got to the point where I just I had to shut down and kind of leave the room and do my own thing. And sort of this fun night for me turned into sort of a nightmare for a minute. It was really weird. So with stuff like that, how do you guys handle that ongoing deconstruction?
Sure. Zod, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think there are several aspects to it. And I think the first thing you have to do is have patience with yourself and recognize it's not going to be a quick process. A lot of stuff is really deeply hardwired in your head. And when you're having a conversation when you're talking to someone from your past and you feel like you're having a conversation with a religion, not the person, there's a reason, which is that that's so hardwired in them. And it's hardwired in you as well, even if you have consciously decided to let it go. So I would say first, just give yourself time and recognize it will be a process. Don't be in a huge hurry and don't beat yourself up or have too much anxiety over every thought that enters into your head. But like somebody actually had been a Christian when I was younger said, you can't keep birds from landing on your head, but you can stop them from building a nest. I find that to be a really good analogy. It's going to pop in. That's not your fault if it pops into your head, but recognizing what it is and dealing with it without beating yourself up and without getting too anxious, just consciously reinvent your thought patterns and how you process that once it enters your head. And I think just through practice, that'll slowly change what your initial impressions are going to be. The other thing is just participate in community and watch materials from non-believers. That was a huge thing for me. I watched a lot of the earlier atheist YouTubers when I was coming out of the faith. And it just reinvents how you think about everything, and consciously thinking about morality and why we're moral and stuff, and just rebuilding that from the ground up. It's a process, but you just have to take it step by step and just don't get too worked up when things don't go well. My journey was a bit different from yours in that I probably first started experiencing doubts when I was in my early 20s. And I would consider myself somewhere between a heavy doubter and a closeted non-believer for 10 to 15 years of my Christian life. And because of various family entrapments, I didn't let go. And so I actually processed a lot of that stuff. I was not knee-jerk homophobic, not a lot of these things when I was still calling myself a Christian and probably still was a Christian. So I really didn't have to wrestle with it in the same way, but I still did address or have to deal with a lot of these things as a non-believer. And I just say, take time and let things slowly be reinvented in your mind. It's not a quick process at all. And it's not your fault that it's not a quick process.
Agreed.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you.
Yeah. It also, if it helps, think about how you would hold someone else accountable for those thoughts. Would you beat somebody up for still working through their indoctrination? How patient would you be for them, and how patient are you letting yourself be to yourself? No. It's important.
Yeah.
Right? Your well-being is important, and it does. Like Zod said, it takes a lot of time. And I've been out for a long time, and I still find vestiges of my faith in so many weird and wonky ways. Gosh, I remember for a very long time, I would still adamantly hold up tenets of Christian faith, even after I left it. Well, that's not a true Christian. And it's like, wait a second, no one. What am I doing? Like, it took so long to get the word cafeteria Christian out of my head as a pejorative. Oh yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I just experienced the other day.
Yeah. Or the idea that you're strong in your faith, you're weak in your faith. All of these different. How's your walk, Eli? How's your walk? Oh, it takes. It's cringy, but it takes time. It takes time. All I want to do is underscore what Zod just said, because entirely agreed.
And I have the benefit of having been annoyed by all that for most of my time as a Christian.
Lucky dog.
Somebody saying, "How's your walk?" made me just want to shrivel up and die. It just grated on every nerve. And so that was even before I would consider myself close to a doubter. So a lot of that stuff, somehow I just don't think I was ever really that compatible with a lot of the practices of Christianity. And so a lot of it shut off me easier than other people. But that's not a virtue on my part. That's just kind of my wiring and how I interacted with my faith. So if it's different for you and takes more time with you, I would just echo what Eric said. A lot of people you love are the victims of bad ideas, right? And you're not going to look down on them or treat them badly for that. You're just still a victim of bad ideas, and you're consciously trying to come out of that. So that in and of itself is doing the right thing. You're not to blame if some of those bad ideas linger and you have to fight them off. You just have a harder battle.
Wow. Yeah.
All right. Hopefully that helps, man. I'm really happy to hear that you called back and checked in. I'm reading in the live chat, a lot of people really resonate with what you're saying. And it's good. It's good that you called back. It's good that you followed up, because it's not just helping you, it's helping other people go, hey, I'm not alone. So thank you for calling.
Totally. Man, let me tell you something. You guys are phenomenal. Eric, Zod, all the other hosts, the crew. Shit, man. I'm not exaggerating when I say that you guys and your organization saved my life and helped me reclaim my life. I really cannot tell you how appreciative I am for all you guys and what you do.
Oh, we're sending you love rings. The crew's sending you love rings.
Yay, sending them right back.
Eli, take care of yourself, brother.
You too, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, that gave me the warm fuzzies.
Yeah. It's amazing when any of us tell our stories about our time as a Christian or after, there's so much it's just exactly the same. And there's a lot of little things when we're just in our own heads and not talking to other people, we think it's just us. And we think there was maybe something wrong with us as a believer, especially when you're going through doubts as a believer. You think there's something wrong with you. This is just me. Everybody else has it together. And then even when you're a non-believer, I think you can have the same thing. I'm struggling with all these Christian things. And so when you just simply hear other Christians or former Christian stories, you recognize that this is just a common thing we all go through.
Yep. So actually, that's part of my own personal mantra is this nihilist take on it, that you're just not that special. And that's wonderful. It's wonderful. We're not so uniquely unqualified or unable or having problems. We're in it together. So cheers. Anyway, let's move on to Germany. Anjur in Deutschland. Wie geht's?
Gut, und selber?
Good. You're talking to Eric and Zod. What would you like to talk about?
Yeah, hi. Hello. Yeah, I have wrote something. Do you think that evolution disprove God?
No, not really.
Not really?
No, it depends on your definition of God.
What? And I think in the most people, or I think definition of God is like the creator or the first mover or something like that.
Well, if that's the case, I don't think so evolution is different than abiogenesis. When you're talking about the beginning of things, when you're talking about the beginning of life,
I'm talking about the whole thing. It's like a big puzzle, and evolution and the beginning of the universe and all these things are smaller pieces which you can puzzle together.
So I think there are lots of people who call themselves Christians who feel the exact same way.
Okay.
So it's funny. Yesterday, I actually emceed an event that Tri-State Freethinkers did. It was the Arc Park Arc Encounter protest. And we did it all digitally. And it goes over that kind of young earth creationist viewpoint. You know, you have these pushes by organizations like Answers in Genesis that will just lay on hard the earth is 6,000 years old, that all creatures...
No, I don't. Sorry.
No, I'm glad. That is the response that I figured you were going to give. Exactly. But they call themselves Christians too. I think that...
I'm not a Christian, so...
Oh.
I'm a Muslim.
Okay. Well, Muslims as well.
But the Muslims don't say that the Earth is only 6,000 years old.
Okay. So, but they do follow the original, Torah, don't they?
The Abrahamic faith, you mean?
Yeah. You still have the Genesis account, right?
No. We have no Genesis account in
really?
In the Quran. No. It's a bit. It's not the same. It's different.
Well,
It's like when God is saying He's created the earth, for example, in 6 days, and the heavens, and with earth and the heavens, with the heavens, it is a universe. So our universe, and 6 days. It is not like 24-hour days. It is like when you go and you look, the sun and all the other things, they were not set. So one day maybe could last for maybe a million years or something like that.
So Zod, well, quick question, because I want to see if we're all on the same page. I got that as a Christian too. I've heard that. Did you ever hear that? Days were just different?
No. I've heard that expressed. I grew up in a branch of Christianity that believed very strongly that it was 6,000 years old or 10,000 years old or whatever. So we rejected that, but I was aware of the idea.
Okay, so it sounds like those faiths have that kind of thing in common. You have people who will say that it's just figurative speech.
No. I don't mean the. I'm the how old the universe is. I think the universe is about 14 billion years, or what is?
Sure, because days, as described, don't actually mean literal days. They mean
no. It is. I don't mean when the sun and all the other orbit things are set. Then the heavens and the other things were already created, and the day at this time lasts for 24 hours. But before that, in the ongoing creation time, these 6 days are different. Before the first cause, or a God, or how you want to call it, create and set all the all the things in the space in the right order. The day were not for 24 hours. They were different. I think it's something like that. But
I really don't care about the time stretch, and I'm glad that you don't believe in a young. And I appreciate you clarifying. Really, I do. Thank you. I'm not going to make that mistake again. I hope I don't make that mistake again. That said, you specifically wanted to talk about evolution, and I want to make sure that we get back to that.
Not only about evolution. I think. Are you familiar with the theory of the science with this sixth stage of Earth? At first, there was the black Earth, then the gray Earth, and I don't know. Then the blue Earth, then the red. So the colors are changing because at first there are the big collusion in the universe, where this universe dust and the big stones are colluding together, and then it's black, and then after this the Earth is so hot, about 1,000 degrees, and then a bit later it is gray because of the big pressure, and then it is blue because immediately there's water and something like that. Are you familiar with this theory from the science?
No, but we'll follow along. What does that have to do with, where are you going with this?
So because the science are saying that all living things came from water.
That I don't know. Honestly, I don't have that kind of.
Because
I don't have that. I don't have that educational background.
Because they say it at first when water was on our Earth, there was the first cell, and the first cell was in evolving in something else, and then
I mean, I've definitely heard that you get proto cells coming from lipids and things. Where's the God come in?
I think science cannot explain how after this 1,000 degrees and over the heat and without the ozone, how water was here on the Earth. I think it's not possible and the second thing I think with evolution is they cannot give a rational explanation for the two genders. So because if it's beginning with one cell, and this cell is procreating itself, and there's no gender, how it is that there was then a female and a male gender?
So that sounds like an argument from ignorance.
Okay. Then
I don't know. Sure, I don't know, therefore X. And so you're saying, I don't know or I don't understand, therefore my claim is true.
No, I have tried to look at this and to find any data or anything, and so there's nothing that I found how the two genders are coming from.
I think it's quite extraordinary for any of the three of us in this conversation to feel like we can conclude that scientists will never be able to come up with an answer for something. To me, that seems like
I don't mean this.
What's that?
I'm not of the opinion that science will never came and to know how it have proceeded. But
can you explain that what you mean when you say science can't explain a certain thing? Science is just a process. By definition, it doesn't explain things. It's a process of inquiry by which we try to better understand things. So how do you feel you can conclude that scientists, number one, can't currently explain things? How do you feel qualified to arrive at that conclusion? And then how is that even meaningful, given that scientists may someday be able to explain it?
So
deciding what science or scientists can't know or won't be able to know, for one, is pretty far-fetched, but then second, it's not really a compelling way to come to believe anything. You're trying to rule out things that you really can't rule out.
Okay. I try to explain it a bit different because English is my third language, because I'm originally from Bosnia, and so
no worries. The fact that you're engaging to this degree in a third language blows my mind.
Okay.
So how about this? Go back and watch this call. We asked a lot of different questions. and there are a lot of things that could be gone over, but I don't think either of us want to talk past you. We'd rather engage with you. And I think you just got a lot of stuff that might help you along the way.
Okay, I'll try to look it again. And thank you for taking it on the show. I appreciate this, and all these questions, for example, that other people or for example, atheists or agnostics are questioning. So for me, it's like it's good that people are engaging in this. How it called
discussion.
Discussion, yeah, right. So we can learn one from the other, and So I think it's only a matter of engaging in nice speak. So I think that's
much
all.
appreciated. Zod, is there anything else you wanted to throw us away before?
No, that's everything. I appreciate
I was asking my co-host.
Hey.
Give me just a second.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything too much further. I just appreciate what you're saying as far as us speaking together and having polite, respectful conversation. And I hope that it comes across that when I'm mentioning these things to you about how we rule things out and stuff like that, I don't mean to immediately shoot you down. It's just a process of all of us trying to refine how we arrive at conclusions and stuff like that. And hopefully we all take something from the conversation.
Okay, fine. So have a nice day.
You too, thank you.
Danke.
Bye.
Bye.
Tschüss.
Tschüss. I haven't heard tschüss in years. All right. That was nice. All right, let's move on and talk to Marc in Montreal. Marc, you're live with Eric and Zod. What would you like to talk about?
Hi.
Marc?
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
Yes. Okay, good. So basically, I've been raised in a house that is not religious, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But over the last few years, I've got really into these debates, all these online that I've seen on Facebook and YouTube and all. And I was really wondering about morality, how you would explain, like, I've seen all these videos online that would say that, like a society or a species would really thrive I see your face and I'm wondering what's going on.
Because I love Zod's video on it, dude, please.
Yeah, I've probably done more content explicitly addressing morality than any other single topic. It's one of my favorite. It's my least favorite thing to have thrown at me by an apologist who I know is going to take it in a certain direction and steer it back there no matter what I say. But I think it's one of the most fascinating things. And my own process of reinventing it as I came to not believe in God has been deeply personal and really interesting to me. So what exactly is your question about morality again?
Yeah, so how morality or like having some kind of moral mindset might advantage some kind of species or society more, I guess. But wouldn't that be akin to social Darwinism, which could be used for a lot of darker things, like World War II, right?
I'm sorry,
So
you broke up for a minute.
I'm having a hard time. Okay, so basically, I'm wondering how would I call it? So, how do you explain that the behaviors that we see in some species and stuff like that, or even cultures, might prove to be helpful for a culture or social society or how is that different than which is Darwinism, which is pretty much
Hey,
Yeah, enough of this is
I'm having a hard
I'm not
time
really able to get the sense of the question.
Marc, you're roboting pretty bad there, buddy.
Okay.
If you want me to just give a really general sense of how I think morality works, are you asking essentially how it functions as a concept absent God or in a godless universe, without descending into like some sort of social Darwinism or something like that?
Yes, pretty much exactly.
Okay.
Perfect. Well, no, we'll try and keep you on. Go ahead. Sorry.
I think the essence of morality at its core, and this is a simplification, but I think the essence of morality at its core is the deferring of immediate gratification. Basically, you recognize that for your own eventual good, and more to the point, for the good of other people in society, you need to behave in a way that will help yourself and others in society without having negative long-term consequences. Whenever an action is moral, it pretty much avoids some kind of harm or disruption to people or society. That's really broadly stating it. But as far as how this works in a universe without God, God does not only is not necessary for morality, he doesn't enter into the concept at all. Because really, in order for you to have a sense of morality or a moral obligation to somebody, all you need is obligation to another being. So regardless of how we came about or whether there's an additional higher being, we can equally have a sense of obligation to another person or other people, broadly speaking. And so that's where we build our morality from.
I'm not arguing over God. As I said, I'm pretty much an atheist. I've been raised an atheist all my life. But it's just over the last few years when I tried to explain to myself morality, I've always had this wall. I don't know if my connection's better now. I moved.
Yeah, at this point I can hear you better. Yeah. And I don't think you were trying to argue for God, but usually I think I best understand morality by contrast with God, because that's usually the seed of doubt that people have put into our head. Without a higher being, how do we have morality? Do you feel like that? Is it all stuck in your head at all, or maybe part of your hang up is having believed that at some point?
No, it's much more about not say it's well, it sure is about wondering what's true, I guess, and philosophical question that I just keep asking myself, and I don't get. I'm having that hard point where morality, I cannot differentiate it from social Darwinism, which is wrong in so many ways, right?
Yeah, I think what it might help me to understand what exactly do you mean by social Darwinism, and how does it confuse your sense of what morality is?
I don't know. I guess I've seen so many articles online, or that it's been pretty much debunked, or that it was used for racist reasons. For example, World War II and stuff like that. And by going there, I'm always, when I'm arguing for this cultural or social evolution, I'm always afraid to go there. And what's the line, right? Of this. I don't know if maybe you can answer or not. Maybe I'm asking the wrong person, wrong people, maybe, you know.
I think a good question to ask, and it'll cut to the core of what you mean by morality. Now, I'm going back to the God thing, and I'm not saying that this is what you're advocating for. But one thing I said is, I've said before, if people ask what's wrong with murder in a universe without God, then I say back to them, what goes wrong if everybody's allowed to murder in a universe without God? And then when they explain, I say that's what's wrong with it. If you're wondering what's inadequate about social Darwinism as a tool for understanding morality, just ask yourself what goes wrong when people use social Darwinism as a tool to understand morality. And you can probably come up with some pretty easy answers to that, right? You have a picture of what goes downhill as far as abuses to other people and things like that. So when you recognize what you see as wrong with that, that's informing something of what you understand morality to be. I think you understand that we all have an obligation to our fellow humans to some extent, right?
Yes, and it's exactly why I would say that, societies that help each other thrive more, and which would maybe explain why there would some societies work better. But then again, that is borderline social Darwinism, and this is what I'm afraid of.
It depends. Okay, so saying that society's working well is an aspect of morality does not necessarily lead you to social Darwinism. If it gets you to social Darwinism, that doesn't mean that idea of morality is bad or it's inadequate. It means that you probably haven't thought through well enough what a good, solid society is. If you take a society like Nazi Germany or whatever example you want to use as an example of social Darwinism at work, you probably would not see that was a good society that worked to the benefit of the people within it, right?
No,
or at least greatly failed certain people within it.
Absolutely not.
What's that?
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that answer, seeing where it failed, can help you refine what your understanding of a society benefiting from morality looks like, and realize that in very meaningful ways, societies that you would consider social Darwinist really did not meet that goal and did not meet their moral obligations. So really, they did not build a good society. In a very superficial way, somebody could say, well, it was good for certain people, but you can explain very clearly why it failed very many people, why it did not meet its obligation to many of the members of the society, and where it went wrong was where it caused harm to certain people. And so I think you're on the right track, that what benefits people and benefits society is morality. But social Darwinism just represents a short-sighted version of that. And just if you really think through any picture of morality where it just doesn't sit right inside you, or you feel like there's something wrong with it, just think through what went wrong. And when you'll do that, you'll come to a clear understanding of what morality is.
All right.
I don't know if that helps. Does that clarify anything for you?
Well, yeah, I guess it does a little bit. And I've seen a few comments in one particular comment in the chat telling me to for 2 links or like 2 papers. So I guess that would be helpful to look at. So that we'll look at those.
And check out Zod's channel.
Yeah, I actually did a few times. Actually, really weird to just put a face on Zod's.
and the catchy intro for sure. Hey, Marc, thank you for calling in.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Take care, dude. That was perfect. I love that. I'm so glad that you were here.
Oh, thank you.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's kind of one of my favorite things to talk about if somebody's going to hear me. If somebody's in a deep apologetics mode where they're just going to repeat what they told me at the beginning, I get frustrated. But to me, it's one of the most fascinating topics, is why we're actually moral.
I love it. I love it. So before I go any further, Zod, how can people find you?
Essentially, well, you can follow the links on the screen, I guess, but basically, if you type Prophet of Zod anywhere, I don't think it's going to lead anywhere but to me. So try it on YouTube is the big one. Twitter is another place I interact. Those are pretty much it. My time for social media is a little bit limited. So if you're going to find me on social media, it's usually going to be Twitter. So just type Prophet of Zod. I'd suggest starting with my channel. If it looks like something that's going to be helpful and interesting to you, great. If not, the atheist community is a varied place with a lot of people who speak to different people. So just check it out and see if it works for you.
Well, Zod, I'm glad that you're in it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been a lot of fun. Actually, I kind of really want to hop into the Discord and talk to people. So if you do not have access to the Discord, you being all of the audience, hopefully we can get that link out to the Discord so we can chat with people after the show. There it is, tiny.cc/ACA Discord, the tiny.cc/ACA Discord. We're going to be hopping over there in just a little bit. I also just want to give a personal thanks to Greg and Katie for helping out with a project that I was doing yesterday. It was the ARC protest, and I just love you guys. But we have an incredible crew who do volunteer all of the time. They're doing, look at that crew. Look at that amazing crew. They are so busy long before we start and way after we end. And sometimes I get messages from them and it's 1 a.m. and they're still working on the podcast and they're still putting things out. We could not do this without you. We love you guys. Thank you so much. So Zod, do you know how we end the show? Just
I believe so.
Spot. Yeah. Okay. So we got our first bit, which is to everybody because COVID, and that is whether you believe or not. If you're putting yourself out there and in danger, if you are working to make sure that our society is continuing to run, if that is working in a hospital or stocking grocery shelves or making food, I mean, really, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you. You're doing your job. We're going to do ours by continuing to be safe, continuing to distance so long as we need to. And thank you. So for those of you who don't believe, this is your community. We're here. And it doesn't matter how far away you are. Zod, the fact that you live so far away. and we've been able to, I mean, last weekend we had Shannon Q on, and Shannon also lives way far away. But we have the ability to stay in touch and be connected with each other. This is your community and we're building it. So thank you. Thank you for joining it. You're welcome here. Got to give one more plug to Recovering from Religion. If you do have time to volunteer for the Hotline Project, please consider doing that because they need the help. There are people who are calling who might only ever call once. And there are calls that are going unanswered because they don't have enough people. So please consider that. Now, we got to throw up some love rings. Forgot about that. All right. You ready? Let's do
it like this.
3, 2, 1. Love it.
I got it on the first try. Look at that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. All right. So here's the part where we say, if you do believe, we don't hate you. We just think you're wrong. You ready?
Ready.
All right. But if you do believe, we don't hate you. We just think you're wrong. Hey. What happened?
Sorry, I missed the timing, I guess. Let's ready again. 1, 2, 3. You don't hate me.
We don't hate you. It's too late.
I dropped the ball on you. Sorry.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank
this
you.
was fun.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I appreciate having me on.
What are we doing, man? What are we doing?